the Commission will publish a report to share a forward-looking vision of what education and learning might become and propose a policy agenda. As most of you know, the ASPNet, UNESCO Associated Schools Project Network, is the largest UNESCO network, encompassing 11,500 educational institutions in 182 countries. And its work focuses on 3 thematic areas of action. First, global citizenship and culture of peace and nonviolence. Second, sustainable development and sustainable livelihood. Third, intercultural learning and appreciation of cultural diversity and heritage. In September 2020, together with our colleagues from the Futures of Education, we launched a special consultation to bring the voices of the school community to the global debate. We invited national coordinators from all countries to engage ASPNet teachers, students, and their parents in joint reflections and to co-construct ideas and perspectives on what the futures of education should be, and to contribute to the work of the Commission. I want to express my sincere gratitude to those of you here today who have engaged in this initiative. Your voices have brought forward innovative ideas and practices, which we have the opportunity to discuss today. And I can confidently say will inform our work and the ASPNet community for the years to come. And of course, we hope that your ideas will also inform the work of the International Commission and the report that will be released in November. I'm honored to welcome today Mr. Abdelbasset Ben Hassen, President of the Arab Institute for Human Rights and member of the International Commission. Mr. Ben Hassen will be moderating this roundtable with national coordinators and teachers from Korea, Finland, Haiti, and Lebanon. Unfortunately, our dear friend and colleague, Mr. Kalisa, National Coordinator of Rwanda, cannot join us today due to an important family matter. We send our condolences to him and his family. I would also like to thank him for the preparation of his presentation that we will share with you as a follow-up to this meeting, so that you can read the results of the focus groups in Rwanda. Let me now make a few comments on the internal management rules. Please type all of your questions in the Q&A section. You can increase the ratings of submitted questions by clicking the like button on the question. We also have an open chat window feature, which you can use to say hello.
Excusez-moi, je crois que j'ai un petit problème
I think I have a slight technical problem here. Sorry. So you can use it to say hello, also to contribute additional thoughts. We are recording this session, this conversation. I still have a problem with my screen. So now, let's look at the Mentimeter. How would you describe education in 2050? Now I'd like to give the floor to Katia and from my team and to Maya from the Futures of Education team, and they will present the overall results of the focus group at the global level. Thank you for your attention. And I hope you are going to enjoy this webinar, and I hope it's going to be extremely fruitful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Julie. Dear colleagues, I'd like to echo Julie's words, and I'd like to thank you for engaging with us in this important initiative and for discussing and envisioning together the futures of education. My name is Katia Anger, and I'm the project officer in the ASPNet team in Paris. And I would like to give you a brief overview of the overall results of the focus groups as discussed by Julie with my colleague Maya. Let's start with a few figures. In September of last year, 140 focus groups have been held with over 2,500 participants in 25 countries from all regions. So on this slide, you can see all the countries for each region that participated and contributed. So thank you very much to all of you, all of these countries for your contribution. Here you see that more than half of all the focus group discussions involve students. So we are delighted to hear a strong voice from the youth in these overall results. And we have about 1/3 of the focus groups that included educators, and about 15% of the focus groups that were organized with parents, which is a good ratio given that this was an optional group. So in terms of discussion topics, about half of the focus groups focused both on education for global citizenship and education for sustainable development. And they also adapted questions to merge both contents, the global citizenship education and the education for sustainable development, GC or ESD. And the other half discussed one or the other topic. So here, a quick reminder for those of you who didn't participate in a focus group. For all discussion groups, the general structure of the discussion was the same, with the first round of reflection on our world in 2050, and a second round of reflection on education for a more just, peaceful, and sustainable societies. So for this first round of reflection, all groups answered the same questions. For the second round of reflection, the questions were adapted according to each theme. So either global citizenship education or education for sustainable development, and according to each stakeholders group, students, teachers, and parents. And here on this slide, you can see the framework of the questions that was used for the various focus groups. But now let's get to the interesting part and let's see the results and what came out of the various focus groups. I'd like to take a brief moment to thank the Center for Global Education in Canada, and in particular Sarah Flynn and her colleague Kim, who helped us analyze the rich data sets we received and compile the results that I'm going to present to you now. Unfortunately, they were not able to attend this webinar today as they both have COVID. And I hope we will all be wishing them a speedy recovery and would like to thank them for their excellent work. So Let's move to the results now. Here you can see two word clouds that reflect the results of the first questions about what educators and principals, students, and their parents want or don't want to see anymore in 2050. And if we round up the top 5 wishes for 2050, we can summarize them as follows. Environmental sustainability, including environmental preservation, waste reduction, and especially plastics. Another main topic is diversity and equality, including tolerance, respect, and inclusion. Third, human rights, including words such as access to education, freedom, healthcare, quality of education. Another topic that was on the forefront was belonging, that is ties with the community, cooperation, family. And another topic was actually moral values. So here it related to empathy, respect, honesty, hope, kindness. And when the focus groups were asked, what don't you want to see in our world in 30 years? Many similar questions became clear, reflecting, for example, priority given to environmental sustainability. The number one concern was pollution. And the other things they didn't want to see were conflicts, human rights violations, exclusion, discrimination, apathy, poor health, and economic hardship. So in the next session today, during this online event, our panelists will respond to these word clouds and will reflect on how they fit with the discussions in, and do they agree or not with what is being done in the focus groups in their respective countries. So now for the second round of reflection on education for more just, peaceful, and sustainable societies, here there were three critical topics that should be underlined and consolidated within our reflection for 2050. That is education beyond the classroom, people-centered learning, and social and emotional well-being. And now let's see the details of each one of these. So with the first theme, education beyond the classroom, almost all of the focus groups when debating this question, that is, how can education foster global citizens, they identified applied and experimental education as key pedagogical methods for the future. And these actually can cover a range of approaches, such as conducting workshops, running simulations, the experience of student exchanges abroad, participating in debates, discussions, and other types of experiences that you can see here on this slide. Similar conclusions emerged also from the ESD discussion. So the general feeling was that in the future, learning will be more uh, focused in alternative places and spaces, such as community, traveling to other places, and experiencing other cultures. And also that there would be more outdoor learning, including learning to grow your own food, for example. Emphasis was also placed on family and community involvement in school initiatives. For the second topic now, on people-centered learning, we found that in the future, participants envision students at the center of the learning process and as active participants in the construction of knowledge using their experiences and their actions. Participants, in particular teachers, also indicated a need for a better balance between the learning methods and community spirit based on community service, cultural humility, equitable access, and seeking different perspectives. And to achieve this vision, participants explained that rigid structures should be challenged. And this is very interesting. Teachers have asked for appropriate training and resources to enable them to make positive changes, in particular when it comes to promoting global citizenship education and education for sustainable development. In the parents' groups, what actually became clear was the idea of supporting school engagement, student learning, and teacher school messages, and also to help schools to teach values and attitudes by supporting this at home also. As for the third topic on social and emotional well-being, envisioning education 2050 really means having a holistic approach to school and the student, an approach that goes beyond academic progress and assessment that we see a lot today. So what does it mean? It means establishing a link between the student well-being and community environmental well-being, involving many aspects of the child's well-being, physical, social, emotional, and mental well-being. And also each subject, each area should include theoretical, applied, and value-based learning. So the right balance and an harmonious one. And educators actually give priority to the value of social emotional skills. So, as you heard, these are some of the initial findings. And we're delighted to announce that during the summer, we will have a co-publication which will provide additional information. So now I'd like to give the floor to my colleague, Maya, from the team of the Futures of Education, who will give you more explanation about the overall commitment and how your ideas and contributions are included in this general framework of consultations. Maya, you have the floor. Thank you. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much for sharing these results of the global analysis with us. And indeed, these findings have already been incorporated in the latest document that was published by the International Commission that presents initial reflections, including a provisional overview of the report that will be published in November 2021, an outline of the report. My colleagues are going to post a link in the chat, and we encourage you all to read this document and tell us what you think about it. Give us your feedback on also the online platform. We'll also post a link on this platform. And before moving on to the roundtable, I'd like to share with you other findings on the other consultation methods we have established for the initiative on the futures of education, highlighting a few common results between the collaboration with ASPNet and other consultation modalities that you see at the top of the slide. There are 6, maybe even more than that, but this is a short selection. So the contributions of the focus groups on the futures of education were 140, actually 425 groups of discussion. There is the focus groups from ASPNet, others come from civil society, NGOs, universities, youth organizations, and others. And in spite of a wider array of topics covered in these consultations, we see that there are similarities with the findings Katia has just presented. The idea that education should be based on experience, as well as learning outside of the classroom, including in the community, at work, through technology or with technology. This is something that was highlighted. As in the ASPNet findings, the notion that students should co-construct their experiences while being supported and mentored by teachers was also highlighted. In terms of what we learn, the focus was on social and emotional learning, just as what we've just heard. Next slide now. So here, with another type of consultation, about 350 works of art were submitted. There was a call for drawings, pictures about what will education be like in 2050. So a number of works of art were submitted by the students of the ASPNet community. 4 topics were identified in these works of arts and drawings. Technology, during a year characterized by the pandemic and massive disruption in education, it is not surprising that the technological change was the most popular theme. Second, artists envisioned education in 2050 as one with improved environments and processes that would be conducive to learning, in resonance with the result of moving away from assessment and integrating collective well-being throughout education systems. Third, education in 2050 was illustrated as having a concern for precariousness in the environment, which also echoes one of the 2 themes that were discussed by ASPNet. And when we analyze these works of art from a gender perspective, the artworks show a prominence of female figures, which may suggest maybe that women's leadership in community and education is important for the futures of education. Next slide. The report of the Commission will be released in November 2021, and this will just be the beginning of a long dialogue and exchange in order to rethink education for the future of humanity and the planet. This is why we are continuing the discussion through social media. We are asking a question every week on the various UNESCO social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and we invite you to continue this discussion with us. So now I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Ben Hassen, the president of the Arab Institute for Human Rights. Mr. Ben Hassen is also a very active member of the International Commission, and he will be moderating during this hour and will promote an exchange with the members of ASPNet in order to draw a number of examples and recommendations to be submitted to the Commission when they finalize that report that will be published in November 2021. So thank you very much. And Mr. Ben Hassen, you have the floor for the next session.
You can turn your camera on.
Thank you very much, Monsieur Ben Hassen.
Merci, Julie. Thank you very much, Julie. Thank you, Katja and Maya. It is an honor and a pleasure to be able to take part in this session today. But first of all, I'd like to address my sincere condolences to Mr. Kalissa. And I'd like to really express our wholehearted support and thank him for the work that he has accomplished, and to ensure him that the results of this session's works will be shared with him. It's an honor for me, and it's a real pleasure to be here today and to share these ideas and the conclusions of this session with a very important network, the network of UNESCO-associated schools, which inspires us and has always inspired us by the work it has done and its participation in development and in making the idea of education and educational practices progress. This session will help us enrich a whole process that is participative, this process that was launched by the Commission, and the ideas that we have just seen and the conclusions, these first conclusions that have been enriched by this debate, it is sure that they will have a true impact on the development of consultation processes and on the final report of the Commission, of the International Commission. Without further ado, this is a debate that will have three major parts. First of all, we will hear your interventions on the word cloud to see what the community of the associated school networks wants and doesn't want to see in 2050. Secondly, we'll hear a presentation of the experiences of each countries, and then we will reflect on the impact of the discussion groups. And if we have some time left, we will open the floor for a short Q&A session. And of course, we will all try to make the most of this debate to enrich this consultative process. So without further ado, I'd like to start by giving the floor to our speakers for a few very short interventions to give us their reaction as to what we've just heard. So in the order of the program, I'll ask the speakers not to go over 2 minutes and to give very short observations, very short preliminary interventions. I'll start with the Republic of Korea. Mr. Kilun-so, you can present yourself briefly first, and then give us a few preliminary remarks. So, Korea, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. My name is Ki-jun Seo from the Republic of Korea. I'm working at the Korean National Commission for UNESCO. Good day to all. Just briefly talking about the word cloud. In Korea, I think it was, for us, regarding what we want to see in 2050, it was, for us, it's quite different. For us, we talked about a lot about humanity, love, kindness, having positive thinking or helping others. I think maybe it's because we are in Korea, we're more related or more familiar with the terminology in global citizenship education rather than education for sustainable development, because I can see here in the word cloud, there's mostly about sustainability, nature, environment, and so on. So for what we want to see in 2050, it's mostly, as I said, peace, love towards others, helping others. And in regards to what we do not want to see in 2050, it's pretty a little more similar. There's a lot of negative views toward hate or toward selfishness or extreme regionalism, extreme discrimination or conflict or war, and also pollution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I will give the floor to Madame Paula Mattila from Finland, please.
Thank you so much. A great honor to be here today. And greetings to everybody who is on board. I can see that we are more than 100 now present. I am the past national coordinator for UNESCO's ASPNet schools in Finland. I'm just starting my process towards retirement from the Finnish National Agency for Education. My followers, however, decided that I should carry the Finnish voice here today because I had the honor of leading the future education process for Finland last autumn, and I also compiled the report for Finland. So about the word clouds, The Finnish reactions are pretty similar than those collected in these two images. Only I would like to point out that in the ones which tell what the youngsters want to see in 2050, a reflection of how young our participants are is seen, because they very often mention their family, their pets, their toys even. And I think that is amazing, because we have to remember that even if they are our future, they are very young. In the other image where we see things that youngsters don't want to see, I want to point out just two things. War is also here in the middle, and amazingly, Finnish youngsters are really afraid of war. I thought that would be a thing of the past in Finland, up in the north. No, kids are afraid of war, so we have to do something about that. Another issue is that is not there is climate change. Practically everybody was mentioning that they are afraid of climate change and they want to do something about that. Okay, so more soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Maintenant, je voudrais donner la parole.
And now I'd like to give the floor to Madame Christiane Jaitani. You have the floor. Madame Christiane Jaitani.
Oui, bonjour.
Yes.
Je suis Christiane Jaitani.
Hello, my name is Christiane Jaitani. I'm the national coordinator of the school network for the Lebanese Commission at UNESCO. Young people in Lebanon share the same reactions and shared the same comments as our colleagues from other countries have shared. What they want to see is more peace, respect for human dignity, human rights, maintaining human values, more international solidarity, more fairness, equality, diversity, and the liberty of religion, education for all, health for all, sustainable development in all its dimensions, water for all. And the things that we don't want to see are terrorism, extremism, violent extremism, fanaticism, poverty, famine, the pandemic, COVID, inequalities, discrimination, racism, impunity, injustice, corruption that we're experiencing. And they also said that they didn't want robotics to manage the world. Thank you. Thank you very much for your reactions. These reactions that were short but very consistent, and they reminded me of very important moments in our international consultations, but also of the work that has been carried out by the Commission. And I'll remember everything that you've stated. There's a lot of similarities around the idea of values, the importance of values in education. This point was very much stressed, like we heard the issues of the importance of an education that will promote a new humanism, education that will develop skills and knowledge. That's a given, but this is a skill that isn't limited to this. It's an education that will develop humanism based on values of peace, on values of non-violence, of civism, of solidarity, inclusion. All of this is very important. And as you've noted, it's also the issue of positive thinking, meaning to be able to bring together a certain space of positive thinking. And I think what the network brings is this sort of space. It brings something that's specific but also tries to bring things together, to build a common base. And I think that this shared space can only value these values and build this shared human space as a goal, as a main goal of this new education. Thank you very much for these brief remarks. They were very interesting. And we will now continue our discussion, and we will hear 5-minute presentations or 5-minute interventions, and each speaker will give us an idea of how the discussion groups take place at national level and what the ideas were that came out of the discussion groups on the issue of how education can contribute to promoting education to global citizenship and education for sustainable development, with examples, of course, of this experience at the national level. So I'll turn back to Mr. Kijun So. Oh, Mr. Ben Hassen, I'm very sorry to interrupt you. It's Maya. We're lucky that Mr. Edric from Haiti has just joined us. Mr. Edric, are you here? Can you hear us? We can see you.
Est-ce que vous voulez peut-être allumer votre microphone?
Maybe you'd like to turn your microphone on?
Bonjour, Monsieur Edric.
Hello, Mr. Edric.
Oui, bonjour.
Alors, Monsieur Ben Hassen.
Mr. Ben Hassen.
Oui, allez-y, allez-y.
Alors, c'était juste pour dire au modérateur que vous êtes là.
I just wanted to tell Mr. Ben Hassen that you're here with us, and so maybe you'd like to also give us your point of view on the word cloud. Mr. Ben Hassen, I'm really sorry, but I just wanted to let you know that Mr. Edric's here. Yes, that's fine. Welcome, Mr. Edric, you've just joined us, and so if you'd like to take the floor and to give us your opinion on the word cloud.
S'il vous plaît.
But we'll first hear from Mr. Kijun, please.
I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Kijun So.
Yes, thank you. Can you show my slide, please? Yes. Hi. For the Republic of Korea, we had 3 discussions, one for students, one for teachers, and one for parents. For students, it was exclusively high school students, so they would be more engaged and have more in-depth discussions that they were prepared to talk about. First, we had a total of 27 participants, and you can see the exact numbers on the screen. First, we received their comments via paper, and they typed their comments, we merged them, and then we had another online discussion. So we would be able to collaborate and compact our discussions and give them to UNESCO, but it was still a lot. And so how can, and compared to the word map, there was a stronger interest in, as I said, value of humanity, helping each others. Just like our Lebanese colleagues, there was also a lot of response to technology. Although there's AI, there's digitalization, they still wanted a human kind of value invested in life. Also, there was opposition to extreme regionalism, conflict, selfishness, discrimination. Also, for students, they also wanted some strong traditional elements, like books or school as a physical space, and also so cultural and ecological resources. And of course, there were, it's obvious, but also there were strong connection toward environmental sustainability. Next slide, please. Yes, also there was breaking away from competitive education aimed at college entrance. All 3 groups discussed that education shouldn't be directed on one direction. It's not only about learning knowledge, it's also about interactive learning and also establishing relationships between teachers and students, and also achieving emotional peace away from the stress of trying to work and to study hard only for the college exam. Next slide, please. Yes, so for us, everybody said that education needs to have a very complex educational context, and the students were most, I think, was enthusiastic about this. They wanted education that could cover various elements and their interactions about what do you have to know to be a global citizen, what do we have to think, what do we have to experience, and they have to be able to know and learn about a lot of, interact with a lot of not only local but also global elements, and also discuss various issues such as development environment, and take a very strong critical approach. Also, they discussed a lot about interaction between people, not only the students, but teachers and community. And also they discussed very much on experience. They wanted to have a variety of experience, not only within the school, but also outside the school, engaging with the community and having a very in-depth experience. They also talked about having a continuation of learning between the home and school. Both the students and also the parents discussed that education should be continued into the home, not only to school, and they should be able to follow these same values that they learned in the school also into the home. So there should be a connection between the school experience and the home experience. Also, interestingly, teachers also discussed the importance of school autonomy from external elements such as political or too much. They didn't discuss this in too much detail, but also not to be able to be responsible for their own curriculum, I think. Yes, thank you. And finally, there's a video from one of our students on the value of education.
From Foreign Language High School in Korea. My school aims to shape global leaders in the future through the active participation in global issues. In particular, I am interested in the future of education, one of the major issues in my organization. As Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Education is the most effective tool to change all of the problems from poverty to inequality in society. What is more important is to get the students in all levels of schools actively involved in the future of education debate. They can express their current concerns in a practical way. Additionally, they can dream of an ideal education for the future. I hope there will be more opportunities like this hereafter.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Malheureusement, par moment, j'ai pas bien.
I'm sorry, but for a few moments I couldn't really hear the video very well, but thank you very much for your participation and for having your student participate in this. Thank you as well for these comments, for your remarks. I think that it's very important to share and to bring together students, teachers, and parents. And the Commission has always discussed this and underlined this, that the reform of education, of a new education, has to be a shared responsibility that brings together all the different players. It's not only the responsibility of the school. Secondly, breaking away with competitive learning is also a key idea for all renewal of education and for renewing the spirit of education. And thirdly, the school is a social space and not just a learning space. The school is a social space, very important, and also the interaction between all the different players. These are all very important points. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to give the floor
to Ms. Paula Matila, please.
Thank you very much. And Simon, if I could see the slides from Finland on the screen. Here we go. So I am so proud and happy to show the figures from Finland. It's practically more than half of our 60 UNESCO ASPNet schools participated. We tried to, at our agency, we tried to make the assignment as easy to handle as possible. So we skipped certain phases suggested by Paris, sorry. But the aim was, and we managed to collect a lot of opinions and visions from students. We made the mistake of not asking the number of students who actually took part, but by calculating the number of schools and then the shapes and forms of the groups who were reported to participate, I'm sure more than 500 students at least participated. And then among the schools, there are ones that are primary schools and middle schools and a great number of high schools as well. So it's the voice from Finland is very representative. I know at least 30 plus teachers took part because they were there in their schools to handle the process. And a big, huge thank you to those teachers who were able to handle this task in the middle of a very problematic COVID-19 autumn. They were always worried about how to handle their teaching anyway, but they took on this assignment beautifully. We skipped mainly talking to parents, but some schools did even that, and the answers from there were also excellent. And then just to summarize some of the issues that came up in the Finnish reactions, I want to point out the empathy that came out from the answers. It was beautiful. So it was not only empathy towards the home and the familiar, but also towards the others globally. So I think that is something that is a very, very strong signal that should be taken on board. How to help the young people to harness this good feeling so that we can move towards a better, a healthier world. And then another issue which has already been coming up is that we need an approach in pedagogics where we can combine subjects and knowledge and learning from beyond school as well. But let's stop listening to me for a tiny while and hear some genuine voices from our Wiki teacher training school. Let's see if we have Pihla and Sari there.
Yes, thank you, Paula. We are here. Maybe you can make even us visible. Greetings from Helsinki, from Finland, Wiki teacher training school. I'm teaching here the 4th graders. And here I have Pihla, now 11. And when we were doing this Futures of Education, so it was very wonderful what you said. So do you remember?
It's an honor that we children are asking our opinion.
Yes, and it was really Pihla who told that it was very spontaneous. It's an honor, she said, that Paris is asking, and the world wants to know what you think. And how do you think about the future?
Our generation can do things differently than before.
Yes, so we believe that children have a lot ideas.
We can change the world, and children are the future.
Yes, and this is how we were handling the issues, and a lot of things were seen in the word clouds. And one that was not visible, so visible there was men and women equality. That was wonderful from our children also. So we say thank you, Paula, and thank you, Paris.
Thank you.
Bye-bye from Finland.
Bravo, thank you. Thank you, Pihla. Thank you, Sari. And then my second slide, Simon, if you would show that. And I will try to be very brief because there is also a direct message from our schools. So I just want to personally point out the fact that when our youngsters were so worried about war, so we have to try to promote the skills for mediation. And I think Finland has some wonderful models to do that as well. And then another issue which has already come up is that we have to try and promote collaboration between students. And now that we have really learned how to go on board digitally, we don't have to travel. That's not sustainable. We can meet online with our students and try and do our best to help them learn and show solidarity that way. But then the second sample of real school thinking from Finland comes from Tuusula High School. We have teacher Antti here somewhere as well. And maybe, Simon, if it's okay, so Antti also shows up first, and then we briefly have a look at the video that students in Tuusula have compiled in order to tell how they feel about the futures of education.
The Baltic Sea is the most polluted sea in the world, and many of us are affected by it. It is our responsibility to take good care of it, and this is our way of taking action.
We took some test samples from the lake, and here are the results.
We used equipment from the school to measure the nitrate and ammonium concentrations in the samples.
The concentration of nitrate, let's say, it's too much above the average what it should be. It means the lake is not very good condition.
Tätä keskustelua voitaisiin käydä tosi pitkään, mutta päästetään ääneen Lukas.
At the end of this summer, I got asked to be a part of a TV show here in Finland.
It was called Maailmaa parantamassa, which means making the world a better place. It was shown on Alpha TV.
My role was to ask questions to some of Finland's most highly educated experts on each subject.
Mä oon aika nuoresta, melkein lapsestakin kokenut, että se, että yrittää yhdessä muiden kanssa niin kuin ottaa myös niin kuin yhteisesti vastuuta siitä, mitä maailmassa on tapahtunut, niin se myös tekee elämästä mielekästä.
We are now at a top-class music hall between Järvenpää and Tuusula.
We are here for a UNESCO meeting between different high schools.
Our job is to read out poems and play some effective music for entertainment.
Tuulenvirren merellä, meren kosketus aalloilla. Lensin pää edellä suoraan kaislikkoon. Sinne eksyin, ei paluuta oo.
Merci, Paula.
Thank you very much, Paula.
Can you hear me?
So yeah. I just wonder if Antti is there, because he might say just a very, very, very brief word from Tuusula.
Okay, merci Paula, merci monsieur.
Thank you, Paola. Thank you, sir.
Notre vidéo, ça c'était pour
This video was very moving. I've watched it many, many times, and the poem is very moving too.
Comment sensibiliser des
The
élèves.
real question is how to raise awareness among students regarding the environmental problems. And we had discussions in the classroom in high school. We also wrote some essays and had some demonstrations, like you see here on a building construction in Tuusula, and also more generally through the discussions organized by our academia.
Le nom de ce philosophe Plato.
It was a Plato academia, named after the philosopher. And in this academia, there were some programs for students. And this year, we have organized the 25th academia of this type for high schoolers.
Mais on ne doit pas oublier, de mon avis,
but I think we should not forget, we also organize a science cruise between Sweden and Finland. And on that boat, there are more than 800 young participants, mainly students from primary school, lower high school, and high schooler also. And there's a mix of humanities and science. And we do that every year.
De mon opinion, ce qu'on a déjà dit,
and I think, and that's what we've said already, the future, well, the youth are our future. They are very optimistic. We don't always see it, but it's in their heart. Thank you. Thank you very much, Paola. Thank you, sir.
Testimonies from the children. Je pense que c'est là l'un
I
des
think that this is why this process, this consultation process is so interesting. It gives a voice, and we can hear these wonderful expressions of what education means, what should its goals be, and also opening up some experimental processes that are a source of hope and that aim at transforming. And indeed, we see the importance of education as a transformative tool for societies towards good. This empathy you explain, that has to be used as a source of change and transformation of society. So thank you very much. And now I give the floor to Mrs. Christiane Cheitani. Thank you.
Au Liban, nous avons organisé 4
In Lebanon, we organized 4 discussion groups with 60 directors, teachers, headmasters, and young people in the secondary school system. Next slide, please. These participants came from various institutions, various horizons, education, culture. You know that we are a country that is characterized by a great variety with different religious communities and their institutions, also secular institutions. We have private and public schools in our network. So what were the ideas of the participants? According to them, education can promote sustainable development through a whole school approach that covers all aspects of school life: school governance, teaching and learning, facilities and activities, and community partnerships. And by integrating the SDGs into the curriculum through a multidisciplinary approach and extracurricular activities, by integrating innovative training for entrepreneurship, leadership, and 21st century skills, by integrating the learning of arts, crafts, and professions of the 21st century, such as robotics and artificial intelligence, while respecting ethics and human values, by ensuring an education system that is adapted to the needs of each child, and by ensuring continuous training of teachers and students. Next slide. Next slide, please. So here you see a good practice. And this was within a partnership that was established with the Center of Information of the UN and the UNESCO Beirut office, as well as the Beirut Alliance. So it's an initiative of UN Aware Certificate initiated by the UN Information Center, and it mobilized teachers and young people regarding SDGs by giving information on the role of the UN and UNESCO, specifically by celebrating international days, organizing activities and fund mobilization for an NGO that has goals that are related to one of the SDGs. And what you see here is a sample of what was done in the primary school. They met with an expert of the UN that explained international days, and they had activities related to the SDGs. So now you're going to hear the testimonies of, if we can hear the testimonies, see the testimonies, yes.
Education can promote sustainable development through reorienting curriculum to be more contextualized to national problems and to be assessed by the students through problem-oriented project-based learning and social entrepreneurship. Second, by using strategies that teach the students the skills needed by him to do his sustainable solutions through clubs or through the assessment, reinforcing executive function skills to build more autonomous learners, and above all, integrating value-based leadership.
Hi, I am Badir Damar. I live inside and I study at Hajbah Hariri School. Education is one of the main sources for having a healthy and comfortable life. And when I say education, I don't mean only learning how to read and write. I mean learning how to analyze situations, learning how to solve problems, and learning how to communicate with others. Technology education is very essential because without technology and technological devices, we would never be able to continue our education in all these difficult circumstances. That's why technology education should be a priority in all schools. From my point of view, I see that Corona taught us the importance of technology and the importance of education. Also, we proved to everybody that nothing could conquer us or prevent us from learning and developing.
Thank you. So I'm going to continue with my presentation. So you've just heard the testimonies of a young boy and a teacher, and they explain regarding global citizenship the importance of integrating the 4 pillars of education: learning to be, learning to know, learning to do, learning to live together. And the pandemic has highlighted the importance of digital skills and socio-emotional skills. The GCE is a moral and civic necessity. It means listening to others, respecting diversity, showing solidarity, and acting for the common good. It is about educating young people to be responsible, making learners actors of change, reinforcing the sense of belonging to a community, a country, a world, through partnerships at the national and international levels. And this is what has been done in Lebanon with several countries. And this is actually the strength and the added value of ASPNet, and also the importance of integrating community service into the curriculum and the culture of commitment and engagement. And here I'm presenting a good practice. We have established a partnership with Youth for Peace Next slide, please. So, we have established this partnership with an NGO, Youth for Peace, in order to train teachers on good governance. And they acquired those skills, they transmitted to students. We had 10 schools that took part and implemented these projects in order to meet the needs of the community and to establish partnerships with municipalities in order to find solutions to the various problems that were raised. So each school worked within its community, and the youth projects that were submitted covered the following themes: respect of the law, preservation of the environment, fight against climate change, road safety, awareness of the dangers of using electronic games. And we're going to hear some testimony of head teachers and teachers.
L'éducation à la citoyenneté est une mission. Elle va au-delà d'un projet ou des projets ponctuels, exige une certaine ouverture au monde et donc un accès fiable aux informations, un accompagnement pédagogique ainsi qu'une relation confiante dans l'autre. Je pense que nous avons vécu une très belle expérience après l'explosion du 4 août. Nous avons vu comment les jeunes se sont mobilisés presque naturellement, comment ils ont exprimé leur solidarité agissante dans leur milieu, comment, au-delà des risques de la pandémie Covid-19, comment ils sont mobilisés pour reconstruire, pour déblayer et pour aider la population.
Nous sommes actuellement confrontés au Liban à des défis significatifs. La crise du Covid-19, la fermeture des écoles et la corruption.
We face significant challenges in Lebanon: COVID-19, corruption, and thinking together with ASPNet is a really ambitious approach. We're working on two fronts: acting against corruption and discrimination. The cultural diversity of Lebanon is a source of and a great asset, and education is the most powerful tool to change the world. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Ben Hassen. Thank you all. Can you hear me? Thank you. Thank you very much, Madame Shaitani. Can you hear me now? Yes. You have finished for now, no? Yes, thank you very much. So, as I said, it was about highlighting diversity in the construction of the concept of citizenship and global citizenship, which is really at the heart of the whole process of consultation. And in the work of the International Commission. And I think that this word citizenship has many meanings in Lebanon that open the road to the development of this notion, of this concept. And also there was a very important aspect, which was youth mobilization from schools and in general, for solidarity action during the various disasters during the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and also the terrible disaster that hit Lebanon. So I think this concept of solidarity is another pillar in constructing citizenship and global citizenship. So thank you very much. And now we're going to hear the various panel members on the impact of these focus groups, of these findings. What will be the impact of these findings, of these reflections on the ASPNet and the ASPNet community, and could it change their perspectives regarding the futures of education? So I'm going to give you the floor very briefly, 2 minutes each, so that we can conclude this third round of discussion.
Donc, the floor is yours, Mr.
Sorry. I'm sorry, but we haven't heard our colleague from Haiti. He's with us, and we have to hear now his presentation for session 2. Yes, I apologize. I'm sorry, and I give the floor to our colleague. Thank you very much. Thank you for these beautiful presentations and contributions that we have heard. So I'm going to be brief because my connection is rather weak. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Peut-on aller à la prochaine diapo, s'il vous plaît?
Next one, please.
Oui, merci.
Thank you. No, not this one. The previous one, please.
La précédente diapo, s'il vous plaît.
It's not this one. Okay. Well, very well. So this is what we've done very briefly. Regarding the word cloud, we have not actually used the word cloud, but I saw some differences with what you presented. It's the fact that the students that took part in our focus group, they underlined the need to have infrastructure because we are lacking in infrastructure in Haiti. And so we need infrastructure, it's true, but we need also to stop polluting. This is what was highlighted regarding the word cloud. But what the findings actually of these focus groups about how can education foster sustainable development? Among good practices, what was actually indicated was what is being implemented by one of the schools in ASPNet, where the event was organized. It's the recycling of paper, for example, by making coal briquettes with recycled paper. And also, they taught the students how to use solar energy and how to install solar panels. And this is a good practice that they really wanted to highlight, that they wanted to present as a good practice and an example to follow for the future in 2050. Next slide.
Oui, je vais tout de suite donner la place.
So, yes, I'm going to give the floor to this nice little girl who is going to tell you what they did in detail in that focus group. Thank you. We can hear the video now. Yes, I'm Wendy Noel, second year in lower secondary school regarding the UNESCO workshop on the futures of education. My group was working on environment. And I hope that schools will take more initiatives in order to raise awareness of students on environmental problems. And I hope that they will organize more campaigns for reforestry and cleaning the environment.
Oui, s'il vous plaît.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Pour terminer, et la prochaine slide. Oui, on a la bonne diapo. Opportunité, qu'est-ce qui fonctionne dans le citoyen?
So what works well when it comes to global citizenship.
Regarder ce que fait l'école qui avait reçu l'activité. Par exemple, ils nous disent que
the students told us putting students in a situation where they can work on really solve problems linked to the environment and the survival of the planet would be important. Teaching human rights is also a prerogative, and setting up environmental clubs and discussion clubs, as well as heritage clubs. And so that's the different conclusions we reached out from our discussion groups. Just to sum it up.
Pour avancer avec notre idée, pour avoir une idée sur ce que...
And this is what we found in order to be able to move forward and to have an idea of how education should move forward to improve the world with the participation of students, parents, and the community at large. Well, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Edric. You highlighted a shared issue for all of humanity. It's one of the essential issues, and that is that of the environment, of ecology, and together with some other questions, this is a shared space for reflection, and it's also a shared challenge for humanity. The issue of the environment, of technology, peace, violence, all these issues are now an integral part of the debate, of the global debate on the future of education. I'd now like to invite you to come back for a few brief remarks on the issue of impact of these discussion groups and the conclusions that have come from them on the network, and also on the future of this reflection on the future of education. So I'd like you to be very brief, because we will try to have a few minutes for Q&A if we have any.
You have the floor.
Yes, thank you, sir. Yes, on the impact, briefly, the responses were mostly positive. The participants thought it was a meaningful experience, helpful to rethink education, to rethink the future, and also some were interested that an international organization like UNESCO would like to survey them. One notable thing was the parents, they felt difficulty in responding to the questions because they thought the questions were too grandiose and utopian, and because their biggest interest right now would be education costs and probably whether their child will go into a good college or not. So but the questions were talking about 30 years in the future. So they had kind of difficulty. They wonder, can I talk about educational costs? With that question would be embedded into the questions that we gave them. So that was one part that was worth discussing. And now we can go see a video from one of our students discussing on the future of education and her experience.
Hi, I'm Suddenly of Korea. Through this discussion about education in the future, I could share my idea with other students who have totally different view of world. So I got the chance to think deeply of something that I've never thought of. And I recognized new faces of world and education that I couldn't know from my surrounding situation. So whether the faces were negative or positive, it allowed me to learn how I can give good effect to education in the future. So I learned a lot, and it was a great experience that students like me could express their thinking to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is back to you, sir.
Merci, merci. Thank you very much. Ms. Paula, please.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope that we very brief because we are running out of time. Please.
Absolutely. So we already heard student Pihla saying that it's an honor that the students are asked, but of course it's the honor and the duty of us adults to go on the discussions, and we in Finland have started doing so already. So we have written the report, shared it both in Finnish and in English. We are organizing in April a major webinar to continue the discussions with the students and the teachers. And I think this model where we really listen to the young people in our country will go on, because this is a new way. This is actually, in my long career, the most touching event ever. So leading the discussion, hearing the real voices of our students and taking them onwards. So wonderful. Thank you, Paris, for giving us the inspiration last summer. We'll go on with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula. Monsieur Edric.
Mr. Hedrick, you have the floor. I think we've lost the connection. Oh no, you're here. Mr. Edrick. Can you hear me? Mr. Edrick. I think we might have a problem with the connection. I'm a high school headmaster. The workshop that we held made me understand the limits we have and the different challenges that we have as teachers, especially when it comes to problems linked to the environment. Education has to be done differently if we want to have good, real results. Parents and communities also have a role to play in this. These challenges are much too important to leave them in the hands of politicians. Every person must be able to do their part. Students, teachers in schools, and also parents and the different communities in which they live, they each have a role to play. Thank you very much.
Madame Christian.
Thank you, Madame Christian. Yes, thank you very much. So we'd really like to thank UNESCO in Paris and the International Commission for having asked us for the opinion of young people and teachers. You've given us a real drive to have more debates and more exchanges and discussions at an intergenerational level, virtually during the pandemic, and to carry out projects together and set up networks in order to put together our different diverse opinions. And we make the most of these networks by establishing partnerships that Lebanon has with different countries, whether it be at national or international level. So thank you very much for having given a voice to all the different people in the network. And we've shared the opinions of our colleagues. We all share the same challenges and we have the same values. This is an asset and an valued value. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to share the testimony of a young person. Dear friends, hello. My name is George Khadram. I'm a second-year high school student in the Institut Moderne of Lebanon. After my experience at the Institute, what's helped me to become a good citizenship and to increase solidarity and applying the principles and values that make us a country. During last month's meetings, there were several shared ideas. We brought up issues of the problems around us, related to global citizenship by giving solutions to different situations, how to live and accept others by enforcing the law, and this will help us form the nation.
Hello, I'm Mr. Zakaria Ahmadi, a teacher from Lebanon. Actually, during the focus group, I noticed that all educators have a common vision about the future of education. And they mentioned an important list of felt needs that should be addressed and fulfilled as the 21st century skills, global citizenship, environmental awareness, ICT skills, practice of human values, curriculum modifications, believing that these values would contribute to a better quality of education and character building. And I believe that we should all adamantly collaborate and take measures to make this happen. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to UNESCO and to the network, which allowed us to hold these discussions, this very rich discussions. Thank you as well to all the different speakers. I think that what we've heard today is very rich in proposals. There are initiatives everywhere around the world, and these initiatives and the richness they represent of all the different sectors of education will give us the possibility, through this shared responsibility, to be able to confront our different challenges. There's challenges linked to resources, to different problems in all regions of our world. And I think the answer to these challenges is the capacity of all the different players who are trying every day to solve these problems and to make sure that education becomes a common good, a shared good for all stakeholders. And I think this discussion today has really shown a whole process of discussions being held everywhere around the world, and I am convinced that what we share is stronger than what divides humanity. We have plenty of shared responsibility, shared power, and I think we will all try to participate in the renewal and the reform of education. Now, we don't have the time to have a discussion on this topic now, but I think that everything that has been said really helps us answer many questions. And there's a Canadian song which will actually conclude this session very well, which I'd like to share with you.
Since the moon was just a child, and the sea flowed like a crystal stream. The trees grew strong upon my mountains wild, and the sky was the bluest you ever seen, bluer than the sky in an eagle's dream. Deloitte na una magi, aktet quali sampo tekni, mani amani pni petita di je, kado avali wanda si, daneruji woda sutisni. I am ancient and forever, and they call my name Cape Breton. I have watched 1,000 seasons fill the beauty of my shores. The hand of God has touched me. If you're quiet, you can hear him as he wanders, singing quietly in the hills beyond your door. J'ai versé quelques larmes en fin de journée pour ceux au loin qui se sentent endormis. Is het beter en ik Nos enfants ont voulu une nouvelle vie. Ils se sont établis en amitié. Jamais ne seront-ils oubliés. I am H&M forever and they call my name Gabriel. I have watched 1,000 seasons build the beauty of my shores. The hand of God has touched me. If you're quiet, you can hear him as he wanders singing quietly in the hills beyond your door.
I am calling to my children, come back home.
Some will carry a hookfish down the mall. In Belladoxium Abidjadio. Alors que l'ex surveille là-haut. Ballade rosse de ma I am H&M forever and they call my name Gabriel. I have watched 1,000 seasons fill the beauty of my shores. The hand of God has touched me. If you're quiet, you can hear him as he wanders singing quietly in the hills beyond your door. Yes, he is wandering, singing quietly in the hills forevermore.
Merci pour la leçon Bernal Memorial High School pour cette
Thank you very much to Hassan Memorial High School for this wonderful song. And I have a last final announcement is that the next webinar will be held in Spanish and English on the 1st of April from 4 till 5:30, moderated by Professor Hernandez from the Harvard School of Education and member of the International Commission. Thank you to all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to all our colleagues.
Maya, merci, Monsieur Ben Hassen.
Merci,
beaucoup.
merci.
Merci à mes collègues Corée, Finlande, Haïti. Merci.
À bientôt tout le monde.
À bientôt.
Ciao.
Merci à tous. Merci.
Merci, merci.
Merci, Monsieur Edric.
Merci, Edric.
Merci,
Merci.